We acknowledge the original owners of the land on which we podcast, whose stories were told for thousands of years. Today, we are recording in Meanjin. We pay our respects to elders past and present who may be listening. Sovereignty was never ceded. A quick note before we get started that there may be some swearing in today's podcast. If you don't like swearing or usually listen with children in the car, you have been warned. You're listening to What in the NDIS Now, a podcast where I, Hannah Redford, and my friend Sam Rosenbaum interview participants and providers about all things NDIS. Hi.
Hello.
So, today on the podcast, we have Leila. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello, second time. I thought you are saying hi to me. So hello to you, Hannah, and hello to everyone who's listening.
Yes. So, tell us, Leila, where did you grow up?
I was born in Tehran. It's the capital city of Iran. And just to give you a bit of picture, Tehran has, while it's a very small city, just maybe a bit bigger than Brisbane. However, over 25 million people lives there, which is equivalent to Australian population. That's how busy it is.
Yeah. Wow, that sounds like a lot of noise.
And just crossing the street, you know how you cross the street here and people, when you are just on the pedestrian line and the car are supposed to stop and they usually do.
Yes.
You cross the street in Iran and just go to the other side of the street alive. That's magic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that idea.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, okay, just check. I'm all good.
I went there. I've been in Australia since 2000, so I've been here most of my life. Last time when I went to Iran, I wasn't able to cross the street by myself, so someone had to accompany me because I didn't know how to do it. So
yeah, because you're so used to Australia now. Yeah,
exactly.
You're an Australian.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. So how did you get into the disability sector?
I remember when I was studying in high school, I was really good at numbers, and everyone thought that's where my pathway is going to be, and that's where my family invested, for my education, just to go to university, do some kind of accounting, engineering, or something like that. And I was in year 11. I was like, I want to be a psychologist. Everyone was against that idea, and they were like, because back those days, like 25, 26 years ago, it wasn't really a high-class job to be a psychologist or a counselor, really. Especially, we are talking about, a country like Iran, where mental health is very, stigmatized. So everyone was against it, but I was like, I'm going to refuse going to university and studying, and just because you are not supporting me. So then I moved here in Australia, and they were like, okay, doing something is better than not doing anything. So they were like, just do what you like to do. And I started studying psychology. I finished my degree, 4 years degree, in psychology at Griffith University. And then the APRA, which is the registration body for psychology, asked me to do my second English test, IELTS, and they wanted me to have 7 out of 9 across all the domain that I was studying. I wasn't able to pass my writing. 6.5 instead of 7. I tried it twice. Everything else was perfect. Like, not perfect, but it was like 8, 8.5, 7.5. But writing, did it twice, 6.5. I was like, no, I'm not going to do it again. So I decided I'm going to do Master of Social Work. And I completed that at Southern Cross University. And I've been a social worker for the last 2 years.
Amazing.
Yes.
And so tell me a little bit about some of the jobs you've had.
Yeah, I started with my psychology degree, which the job I was offered didn't have anything to do with it, but that's the best I could get as a migrant with second language. And yes, there is a stigma, unfortunately, that it's not talking about. But anyway, I'm fortunate because I learned through each job that I had. I've been working as a support worker, case manager, early intervention, homelessness, working with migrants. I've done a bit of everything, and everything gave me experience, which I really, really appreciate. I'm who I am with all the experience that I have because of every single job opportunity that I was offered. I worked for big organizations, and then I decided just less than 2 years ago that I'm going to be independent. And I met yourself, Hannah, at one of those big organizations. And the friendship and, yeah, I started there, which I really appreciated. It's been great.
Oh, thank you.
Opportunity, yes.
I love you as a friend. I think you're such an awesome person, and I wish so often people would look past your accent essentially, because that's all that is sort of in the way.
Yeah.
And it drives me nuts so often that people cannot see beyond that accent. And I don't understand it, because you are so passionate and you go above and beyond for your participants, and you are so good at it. And so it just, I often am in despair when people are horrible to you, because they really do get horrible. I have witnessed it several times, dear listeners, and I sometimes cringe and just want to say to Leila, this is, I'm from the same culture as these horrible people, but I am not them. And,
I really appreciate your positive feedback, and I really value the relation. But to be honest, we can't, that's part of the social work and I guess psychology, and that's what I learned throughout the years. We can't change everyone. And so I've got a good network of people that I'm working with who are appreciating of who I am. A funny story about my accent. I used to work for a big provider when I was a support worker, like 10 years ago. It's called Aftercare. I think they changed name these days. I remember I was calling different places and introducing myself. Hello, it's Leila from Aftercare. And they are like, from Africa? No, I'm from Aftercare. So it was so funny. They thought probably I'm one of those spam caller from, international spam caller. That was so funny. But I guess in the positive note, my older son was telling me the other day that my accent becoming more Aussie. And I was like, should I take it as more as a compliment or? So yeah.
Oh, that's super lovely. Yeah. I love that. And you have done so well in your business out on your own. And
I love it.
Yeah.
When you love something.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess having my lived experience as well as my social worker hat on, just doing what I'm doing, is just give me so much passion that we are working with vulnerable people. I feel very fortunate that they let us into their life, because it's a very fragile space, to be honest, and it's not easy to trust people in your journey. So I feel quite privileged being part of their life.
Yeah.
It's not permanent.
Yeah.
It's just for a period of time, but even for that period.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And now you're venturing off into Silland.
I am my passion is mental health. It's always been mental health. And even when I was in year 11. So whatever I've done, it's been around mental health. So my caseload around support coordination is for people with psychosocial disability. So I've got like 6 people with psychosocial disability in my caseload. And then I thought I would like to offer very small number of still houses, just offering it to people with psychosocial disability, where we can get the staff who are trained in that area. I don't like, or me and my business partner, we don't like to grow and just have, houses everywhere. It's just going to be very few houses where we are just going to concentrate on mental health and psychosocial disability, participant with psychosocial disability. Yes. So that I'm very, very excited about that. Yeah. Watch the space on that one. Yeah.
I'm really excited about it too. I think you're both going to be amazing because we've seen through being support coordinators, we've seen some really good still, but mostly really bad.
Yeah.
And you know what doesn't work. And so you've got an opportunity to create still that is amazing and is also where you're focusing on just still. You're not doing like community access, and you're not doing in-home support and this and that and this and that and everything under the sun. You're doing still, and that way you're going to do it really well because you know the ins and outs of still, because that's all you kind of do in that business.
I definitely know what's not working well, and definitely are going to avoid just implementing what's not working well. And being a support coordinator for the last 4 years just gave me the insight of working, and the experience to work with so many different still provider and just having a big list of what not working well and just growing, so quickly is just one of them, definitely. That's where you lose the quality and not listening to people. I like to meet with all my participants. I like to be part of their life, listen to them, see what their goals are and how we can improve. And it's not just the participants that we are talking about with the guardian, that's what's happening. Having open communication with them. So definitely, yes, that's something that me and my business partner, Jules, are very, very excited about. He's got so many years experience in the community sector as a support worker as well. And as you said, we are just going to concentrate on still, and we would like to make sure that the quality is there. Yeah. Awesome. So we are going to support people in their recovery journey. Yes.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Now, we wanted to talk a little bit about a case that you've been working on, because you've got a young one who is in later primary school with fairly severe behaviour challenges.
Yep.
Which are definitely not their fault.
Yeah.
I really think a big part of that issue has been the adults in the situation.
Yeah.
So, do you want to tell us a little bit about that? Because I'd really like to highlight this so that people understand the difficulty that a lot of us have between the interaction of NDIS and the Department of Education.
Yeah, sure. The beauty of me having my social hat on when I'm doing support coordination is just, I would say I could be a too much advocate sometimes. And I guess that's what you said earlier. I can, sometimes I just do something outside of a scope of support coordination role. And, for me, it's just the people and their quality of life. And if something needs to be done, it needs to be done. So I've been working with this family with a young person who's got level 3 autism. She's got a diagnosis of ADHD, and you just keep your eyes off her and she will be on the roof. And she's not verbal. And when I engaged with the family were quite, they were not open to any support. They were very close family, and it took me a long time to build that relationship and gain their trust. At the time, and I'm not surprised why they couldn't trust me, because they had so many providers like OT, speech therapists. They walked off, away from them, saying, it's too complex, we can't help you, sorry, you're out. They had a school, when she was going to a school, and she was like year 2 or 3. She was going to a school and mom would get phone call, and it was a public school, a special unit. Mom would get a phone call from the school at least 3-4 times per week, come and pick her up. We don't know what to do with her. And then they decided they are going to enroll her in more specialized school, and which they did. And obviously it cost them some money, which they were happy to pay for it as long as it was special. Unfortunately, that enrollment didn't work out either. That arrangement didn't work out either. And the school ceased services. They said they are no longer able to support her because of the behavior of concern. They said at time they had 3 teachers just working together with this young lady, managing the behavior of concern. It's not safe for her. It's not safe for their staff. It's not safe for the school and the teacher and the other student. So that enrollment didn't work out.
Which to me is kind of, it blows my mind just there. The story does go on a bit, but to start there, 3 adults in front of one child, I absolutely understand why that child would be screaming. I would be screaming because you don't understand what's going on. Why are these big adults around me? What is happening? And it's scary.
Yep.
And so by putting more, like, 1 or maybe 2 people should have been trained enough to be able to keep one young person from, like, if they're trained well, it shouldn't have been able to escalate.
Yeah.
And to the point where you have to have 3. Like, that to me is such an overreaction and shows a lack of understanding, a lack of training.
Yeah.
It's awful.
Yeah.
So I just really wanted to drive that home to everyone because it really upsets me that that was even thought like this will be a good idea.
Yeah.
So yes. So then she went to another
special school.
Yes.
And where the family were promised she's going to stay here. She's going to finish year 12 here. We all are trained. No problem. None of the, whatever happened in the past is not going to be repeated again. And all of a sudden, we are having, concerns from a school raising that the behavior are so complicated and the school is not able to offer full-time education to this person. And and I guess as a social worker, I'm like, this person or the family haven't chose for this person to be disabled. And I totally understand that the other students and the staff need to be safe. I totally get that part as well. However, at the same time, we're in this world, in this universe, people like my young participants have a right to live. What's their rights?
She has a right to an education. And in Australia, we say, every child has a right to an education. Yeah. And so like this, first of all, this also is the second part that makes me seriously angry.
But that's not all. Hang in there.
Yes.
She's extremely underfunded by NDIS because they believe looking after her, it's the parental responsibility. Last time, I'm not going to share more because I want to keep it confidential. But yes, the NDIS, we are fighting with NDIS on plan review and trying to gather evidence to say how complex it is, and it's beyond parental responsibility, and they need to look into it. And having NDIS as a federal, agency, and having the Department of Education as a state agency, that's the next level of the complexity, how we can make them to communicate with each other and just realize, how much this family are struggling and they are breaking up. They've got nothing more to give.
Yeah, which
basically
makes total sense that they are at the end of their rope because they've trusted everyone along the way and everyone has let them down. I mean, other than you so far, but there's only, even us, there's only so much we can affect.
do. Yeah.
So, she's then, okay, can only do a part-time enrollment, and then the other days of the week that she's not at school or the other hours, depending on how they organise it, we then need the NDIS to come in and say, yes, we'll get support in on those days. But the NDIS says that children are not to have support workers between the hours of 9 and 3 because we expect children to be at school. But what if they're not at school because the schools can't deal with it?
Because of their disability.
And they are supposedly trained professionals. How are the parents who are not trained professionals meant to look after this child? It is really frustrating and mind-boggling that neither part of this equation can see the problem.
Yeah. And, I guess, what the other thing that frustrates me, you see the inconsistency in the NDIS system itself. Someone in the same condition get far more better funding, and then someone else is just left behind. And you're like, okay, I can see both cases. Where is the consistency? What should we do more to get the same, level of support for both participants with the same level of, dysfunction on a daily life because of their disability? Yeah. So it's just complex and frustrating in every level you can think of. Yeah.
And it also highlights that sometimes the education department can't cater to everybody, but it should. and like, we know that. We homeschool one of our children now because the schools have let us down.
Yeah.
And our child doesn't even have that many complexities, but has enough complexities that schools have kind of gone, we don't really know how to teach to this child.
Yeah.
And it is heartbreaking when you feel let down by the whole system.
Yeah.
And the system that is supposed to help you the most.
Yeah.
And it's so frustrating.
And I'm sure, there are other cases like this, and I'm sure, cases like this needs to be raised and discussed for the change in the system. Otherwise, we had the main school to start with, and then throughout the years, there was changes and there was some alternative education system because they could see the needs. And right now, I guess we just facing another phase where they need to do something, differently. We need different system who people like my young participants is going to fit in.
Yeah.
And is not going to be left out. And it's not just the education, it's the social interaction, it's the isolation, it's the mental health. She can't talk, but the sense of rejection.
Yeah.
That, the world is not safe for me either.
Yeah.
And she can't communicate that with anyone. So, yeah. So I'm really hoping something change in coming years. And, but at the moment the family are living it and they are impacted by it. And it's very frustrating. Definitely, for sure. Yeah.
Well, I think they're really lucky to have you, and to have someone backing them up, because it's clear that they haven't had that before.
And I really appreciate what you said. And you know what I say? Usually I say this all honestly. I feel like the pleasure is mine to be part of their life. Again, with so many people being in and out, they were quite hesitant to trust me. And I really appreciate that the trust was built 2 years ago and we can see some progress. It's not massive, but we can see some progress. I can see there are more parents than being a support coordinator now, and they can come back to me and just let me know what they need, and I can just go and source it out for them, and yeah, so really the pleasure is mine for them to trust me, the same as all my other participants. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. It is part of, I love being a support coordinator.
Yeah.
And I think it's always funny to me when people say, "Oh, I could never be a support coordinator," and I just think it cracks me up, because I'm like, I could never do whatever you do.
I could be a nurse or firefighter or a police officer.
Yeah. Like I couldn't be a support worker. It's the reason I'm not a support worker.
Yeah.
I can't do that job, and so I often think it's very funny, but people often say it to me, and I'm just like, it's a pretty awesome job.
And it's great to be a social worker and support coordinator, because you could be a social worker and working in homelessness. I don't want to do that. I don't want, especially in right now with what's happening in Queensland with the housing crisis. I definitely don't want to work in that space. For me, working in NDIS sector where you have the ability to, or you've got the resources to make changes, that's awesome. That's amazing. And I love and enjoy that.
Yes. I mean, we could talk about how homelessness interacts with the NDIS as well. It's not good.
Definitely could, yes. That's going to take another whole, podcast, perhaps.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So now I'm going to ask you the normal last question that I always love to hear. In your ideal world, what would the future of the NDIS look like?
Fortunately or unfortunately, as a social worker again, I always look for justice, right? And I look for people take responsibility for their action. I really like the planner to take some responsibility for the decisions that they are making, because it's impacting someone's life, not looking thoroughly through the evidence, the reports, the recommendation, and just come up with a plan that it's not suitable for the person. It's not, it's not saving funding. It's not saving money, for the NDIS. Instead, it's just waste of the funding where it could be used to support the participants where they need them, So instead of just going and getting another OT report, behavior specialist report, and just get further and further evidence and just waste the funding that could be there to support in elsewhere where it's needed, And then, I really like to have a planner to be appointed to each individual instead of just having different planner each time.
Yes, please.
So, and I really like that the COVID is over, the planner to come out and visit their participants in the community and see how their real life look like for them. Then they are going to be more realistic when they are going to make their decision. It's just not going to be X and Y and Z based on the OT report, are behaving like this. They go and see in person how it's actually it's look like, and then they be taken accountable and responsible for the decision they make when they are making decisions. Very, very, very a small, tiny example. When they just do a plan review and they just come back and they just change the support coordination or different type of funding agency manage without being requested.
Yes.
And that's hold and put pause on everything, because as a support coordinator, you can't move forward, really.
Yes.
There's no funding for you to support, and to just engage with the participants unless you have to go and ask for another plan review. Again, that's waste of funding. So I really, I truly believe if there is a planner assigned to a person, they spend time with the participant in the community, they visit them, and then they be taken accountable for the decision that they made. I think we are going to have a better plan, and we don't need as many reviews as we need, and including internal review or external review. And we can save a lot of money and use it in the right place. That's what I want to see.
I love this
in
idea
the ideal world.
Yes.
One day.
I think it's great. Like even like as a halfway point to start with, I would be happy if they would just hold all the meetings in an office. Like stop phone call meetings and have them in an office, and don't. Or also what annoys me is sometimes where they like spring it on a person and they just call and they go, "Oh, hi. So we just want to have a conversation." And then it turns out that was the review meeting.
Absolutely.
And the participant had no idea, or the mum and dad had no idea that was the review meeting. And whereas if all of them were in an office and you could at least at a minimum,
meeting.
there is a face-to-face meeting, and go, these are all the things that we need. And that would even be a step up from phone calls.
That would be a baby step for my dream goal, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then beyond that is obviously what Leila said. I definitely want to see that. But as a first baby step, meetings in an office would be nice.
Or another, before your baby step, maybe if they approve a plan before they, even without that phone call that you mentioned, if they call someone and say, there's a new plan.
Yes.
Because there are so many times there's a new plan and no one's been informed whatsoever.
Oh, yes.
So we see that so often.
Oh my God.
So there are so many baby steps. Again, if someone's been taken accountable for that decisions, I think they would do it differently and they would do better.
I agree. Yeah.
It became a long way, and there's a long way still to go. So that's for sure. Yeah.
Yes. Well, we just celebrated 10 years of the NDIS.
Yay.
So I'm definitely looking forward to it getting better from here, and it, like, everyone taking stock of the last 10 years and okay, we can do better than this. So
let's hope for that.
Yes. Awesome.
Sure.
Well, thank you so much, Leila, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Everyone, if you want to get in touch with Leila, her details will be in the episode description, so look out for that. If you miss seeing that, you can always email me and I will give you Leila's details. But thanks for listening.
Thank you, Hannah.
Thank you for listening. Please share with people you know. You can email us at whatinthendispod@gmail.com. To contact me, it's hannah@tulipcoordination.com.au. And to contact Sam, it's sam@rosenbaum.consulting. Until next time, as the Green Brothers say, don't forget to be awesome.